Hello everybody, this is Aaron Giampetro from the Morningstar Packing Company. Every year we take a step back from the crop execution and we look at some of the broader forces that are shaping the processed tomato industry here in California with some clues and notes about what's happening largely abroad. Instead of one large video, this time we're breaking it into 3 segments, each focused on a unique area that's important at this time. The first being the raw material supply chain, the second being the water situation in California, and the third will be a supply and demand outlook for California and the processing tomato industry at large around the world. So today we have 2 colleagues from our raw material supply chain focused conversation, Robbie Force, who leads our ag supply chain operations and logistics, as well as Emily Clay, whose focus and mission is on variety development, variety research, and trialing. So let's get started. Robbie, 2025 was an incredible crop. We've heard about it plenty of times. What is the current state of affairs or understanding out in the field right now? How are things going from a grower perspective?
Yeah, so because of the large crop and the inventory sizes, we've definitely had some softening demand from the processors, and we think that will likely turn into lower prices out in the field. But overall, we're stable and healthy, and I think all this reset is just part of a healthy system after a couple of really big productive years, just resetting and making things right here. We expect that tomato acres are still profitable for most growers. There just aren't a lot of other options for them right now.
So when we look at things like permanent crops, it's a bit of a different story. Fortunately, there's some positive notes there for pistachios, almonds, and walnuts.
Yeah. A handful of the permanent crops have shown some real promise there, and so especially almonds have recovered price pretty nicely in this last year. And so there's options there. There's, for the tomato growers and row crop wise, there's just not a whole lot. And it's really unfortunate because we've got really good water supply this year. And so normally that's the biggest hurdle we've got in California is making sure we've got enough water to supply those acres. And there just aren't many good options to utilize that water in those acres this year.
So when you think about this situation, we put it together, it sounds like some of the softer demand for acres, for row crops, specialty row crops, may put some downward pressure on pricing, at least for farm gate pricing for some of these goods. However, we know that price is one thing and cost is another, and really for the longevity and health of our industry, we need to focus on cost. So what do we see happening right now with main variable cost inputs for California growers?
The 3 big things we track there are labor, fuel, and fertilizer. A small increase in minimum wage this year on labor. I think the bigger concern there is the labor availability. That seems to be a hot topic and something everybody asks about. We're in pretty good shape this year. With a reduced pack and reduced competition from other row crops, there seems to be enough labor. We're certainly internally hitting our metrics for where we should be this time of the year. But we've got some long-term concern that as the industry gets back to full speed, which we fully expect it to do, that we've got a shrinking labor pool in California that just has, we've got an aging workforce, we've had tightened borders protocols, and so all of that has led to that pool shrinking a little bit for us, and we just don't have the overall labor to pull from that you have historically.
Certainly seems to be putting some pressure on the near-term horizon, and a lot of times when we have these pain points or these pressure points, we see innovation pick up the slack. California's done a great job innovating all these years, So what are we seeing happening in California specific for processing tomatoes that's a bit new and exciting that's helping us to adapt to some of these challenges?
Yeah, it is really neat that those labor shortages and the pricing of it really drive technology and innovation and force us into being more creative and finding better ways to do things. And I think overall the ag industry has been very good over the last handful of years in pushing labor savings automation. So we've got automated tractors out there, we've got automated sprayers, drones out there doing some work, all of it leveraging a single person's ability to get more work done. And so they've been great labor savings tools for us.
Interesting about things like automation is they tend to shift variable costs into fixed costs. So they respond to things that are pressing us, but as we increase fixed costs, we have to also be concerned about profitability. Major way of doing that is yield. So anything that you see advancing relative to tomato yield that's helping to secure that future for us.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, this is what really excites me and has made me smile the last couple of years is that we've really seen the genetic potential unlocked in these varieties. Amazing that we were yielding over 100 tons of the acre on some things that we never thought that was possible. So lots of good stuff going on there. And this is an area that Morningstar has invested heavily in over the last several years. And Emily and her team have a whole lot of really exciting projects coming down the road.
Well, it's a great lead over to Emily. One of the most impressive things about tomatoes in this area is we get to talk about genetics. And I don't think anywhere else in our business we can talk about genetics.
No.
So, unless we're talking about talent. But in any event, when we think about what just happened last year, it was a big crop, like we mentioned. Oftentimes we reduce it down to California. It's just California, like it's one homogeneous mixture. And we know that it's much broader than that. It's many, many microclimates in different areas. So how do we see that translating into breeding, specifically the adaptability for the various areas throughout the state?
The same thing adaptability-wise from a breeder can also apply to how we view growers. Growers are extremely resilient, extremely adaptable and adjusting what they need to do, like furrow to drip irrigation or direct seed to transplants, like we've had to evolve into. Breeders have the same stakes with the same amount of inputs and a hefty investment 5-7 years in advance to a commercial product. So, they do this through an immense amount of just breeding work, but also streamlined technology. There's a lot of modernized genetic tools that help make them keep them smarter, faster. It's difficult to talk about adaptability because they've been adapting. There's always something new for them to adapt to, right? Mm-hmm. It always changes. But I would say one thing that they've done extremely well with as far as adapting goes, right, is through disease resistances. In today's time, what we're seeing is we have a full package of varieties with stacked disease resistances, right? So now the focus is adapting to providing a variety and developing a variety that is not one-dimensional.
And I think what's interesting is you mentioned genetics and some of these advanced genetics tools. They're really opening a lot of dialogues in the industry and the market right now about the future of these technologies and how they can help us quickly solve problems. But it seems like we're consistently working towards getting more advanced technology out there in the field, so it's not just only left to traditional breeding.
Yes. As
you look at it from that lens, what are some of the top priorities you're seeing breeders focus on? You mentioned it's multidimensional. Mm-hmm. So what are some of these dimensions and these priorities that you see the breeders focusing on right now?
The seed breeders have a more balanced discipline, right? So they're extremely focused in their breeding now that they kind of have yield as a standard. That comes almost like a disease resistance, if you will. You have all these disease resistances, then you have field holding, and then you have yield. That's the bottom line. They can get precise with traits that truly add value, not just to the grower, but to the processor as well.
And traits could be things like?
So let's just say, broadly speaking, in the field, something that's always going to be a hot topic, right, is drought tolerance or drought resistance, how they can adapt to those. On the factory side, solids, viscosity, right? I mean, there's some color, there's something for everything. To round this out, this is not an easy job. This is a really, really difficult job. Rather you're using all the technology in the world, it's still a very, very difficult job that takes rigorous trialing efforts and time. And we can speed time, but sometimes speed isn't always the answer.
Certainly there's some speed that we can pick up with technologies like artificial intelligence to help the breeder along.
Correct. And I'm really excited that we're more open to having that conversation. And Morningstar being progressive in this space, right, is because we are not afraid to talk about it. And so what I'm seeing is everyone becoming way more open-minded. And what I'm the most excited about for, generative AI situations is to help us predict stuff that we haven't lived through yet. It's incredible. It's an incredible opportunity for growth in not only the seed industry, but in the processing tomato industry.
Now with human intelligence, we have, and what we learned from 2025, big results. Weather was a lot to complement, I would say, for the advancements we saw. But there has to be some things that are within our control that we think we learned. So what do you think we can take out of 2025 and sustain and lock in these gains we had from a variety standpoint? What did we learn from that performance?
So from a variety standpoint and developing varieties, I'm going to say that we're going to take 2025 as a grain of salt.
Okay.
That's kind of
too good.
It was
looked good.
Yeah, but I mean, I think that we're proceeding through 2025 results, right, with caution. but also extreme optimism. The potential unlocked was unmatched. And I, have never seen a year like this. And I've talked to a lot of people who have been in this industry, right, for way longer than me, or even before I was born. And it's just unprecedented what happened this year. And to me, that just excited me on so many levels, to see what the potential really is of varieties that were developed in those drought years. But also, to see them just absolutely soar.
And I think you make an excellent point about
Yeah.
those varieties that we saw do so much this year that we didn't know they were capable of. Were all developed in a pressure cooker, right? In those lean years where growing conditions weren't good and we weren't yielding well, you can really decipher what's good and bad in there. And we've seen the benefits of that the last couple of years.
Yeah.
Well, kind of leads us to, we talked a little bit about weather, but leads us to water, which will be our next subject we'll cover in a follow-up video to this, as we explore the influence water has on California processed tomato industry and what some of the current clues are telling us about the near term for 2026. So Robbie, Emily, thank you very much. Thank you all.
Okay. Thank you.